one thing I want to throw out in the NBA realm that I was actually debating about yesterday. I saw a tweet that basically said this dad told this beat reporter or whoever this basketball guy was that he spends $4,500 a year on his son for AAU basketball. Ted, I just want to ask you first.
Okay.
Because your opinion will be interesting because you've never even dealt with AAU, and then Matt, this could very well be your life in 12 years. So Ted, I guess you first.
You want my opinion on the whole
spending and just the AAU in general?
I'm not against AAU. Okay, I think it's okay off season if you want to play AAU basketball, let's say in the summertime, and not have anything to do with the high school season, I'm okay with that. But when they interfere and it becomes the number one priority, to play AAU ball, and you have to play AAU ball before you're even going to get a chance on your varsity high school team, then I draw the line there. I mean, there are some good things about it, but this is the old school part of me. And you guys know how I stand on this, going back to there's just way too much specialization in my mind right now. I think when you're a kid, I mean, whether it be in the classroom or whether it be on the athletic field, you need time to just chill out, get away from it, relax a little bit, move, play multiple sports, don't specialize. And I think it's been proven that the top athletes in the NBA, NFL, MLB, they are multi-sport players when they were in high school. So, the whole AAU thing and spending that kind of money, and I think it is a generational thing too, where I'm not saying it's bad, I'm not saying it's good, but parents nowadays feel obligated that they have to be at every single event of their kid, including their practices. And I'm not so sure that's the healthiest thing in the world.
Yeah. I think being at the games is different when
Right.
you have the parents that have to be at every practice also.
Right.
It is kind of like, man, I appreciate your commitment to your kids, but give them a little bit of space. This is we could probably do a whole podcast on this.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like really interesting. Like when I was coming through middle school, high school is when AAU, so like, late 90s, early 2000s was really starting to take off. And like to the point where, I mean, Jared, your dad, with basketball, we would talk about like we did the Flint League in the summer. There was a Flint League that we would go play. And it was essentially AAU. It wasn't AAU, but it was an organized Flint League that our basketball team in the summer, we would go play games. And that's kind of like where it was really kind of starting to pick up. And people would start playing for these AAU leagues. And so like for me, like seeing it kind of start, like when I was going through, it was almost like you only did that one if you were rich or if you were going to be like LeBron James or something, like that's the only way you did it. It's just, it bothers me because I like the specialist. I played 3 sports. I think there's so much value in that. I agree 100% with you, Ted. You see it. And you hear people talk about like the skills that you build. Say you're playing soccer, that, the skills that you build in soccer translate to basketball or football or whatever. Like if you only play one sport, you're like not building your body up, and all your other muscle memory and all these other like skills that you could develop. So I don't understand that. It's kind of back to the Bronny thing. Also, like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Does he play other sports?
I don't think so. No,
on
just
NBA
basketball.
2K. So like, so is that really helping his basketball game? Probably not. And like the cost thing, I was talking to one of my a guy I work with. His kid is into hockey, and hockey is just like insanely expensive. And luckily, he said their community, like their hockey community, they're really good about hand-me-down. Like when one kid like, grows out of stuff, they'll like go down to the next team and be like, hey, I got some skates, some goalie gear, whatever. They figure that stuff out. So that's cool. But he was saying, I forget the cost for the season. I want to say it was running up around 10 grand when he built in the gear, the
ice
renting,
time.
the ice time, just the fees for the league, paying the coaches, because a lot of these leagues, the parents pay the coaches, so it's not like it's a school system paying the coaches, it's the parents, all of that. But also he said a lot of their games were during school hours. So you had to pull your kid from school to go play in these hockey games because that's when they could get the ice time. Down here in North Carolina, there's not as much ice as there is, up in Michigan. So that's part of it. But So all of that combined, and he was like, if my kid didn't absolutely love playing hockey, there's no way we would be doing this. But he loves it. His friends play, so we do it. But it's getting out of control, like to the point where you wonder, like Imani Bates is almost like a perfect example. He was supposed to be the next Kevin Durant, superstar, best player in the country.
Stamp it.
He starts going the AAU route. His dad builds this prep school in Ypsilanti. And you just wonder if he would have just stayed at his high school, played MHSAA basketball, at what school did he go to?
Ypsilanti Lincoln.
Yeah. If he would have stayed there, fine coaching, his coaching staff there was fine, developed his skills there. You just wonder if he would have been a little better. I mean, people are talking, he might not even be a first round draft pick. He probably will be just because of the potential. But yeah, I understand why people go play AAU because, like you said, Ted, you feel like you're going to get left behind.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't play these AAU sports, you feel like you're not going to make the team, come the school season. And that's a whole other issue. So it's a problem.
So it's weird because, dude, like that's what I mean. Like Imani Bates, I remember if I've told the story on the pod before, where I was getting like a police escort into this guy's games. Like it's a high schooler. Kid was 15 years old, and there's like people are like basically about to start a riot to get into this damn game. And then you see like hear stories where like LeBron couldn't get into LaMelo versus Zion, some AAU game like 6-7 years ago. It's gotten way too big. I remember I only played at AAU 1 year, and it's just it's weird. You realize all the costs of that start adding up. The hotels, you're probably driving at least 30 minutes to practice twice a week. You have to get jerseys. You gotta get shoes. Like everything starts adding up. The constant driving all over the Midwest, pretty much. I think it's a good thing in general. For mostly, it's a good thing. But I feel like within the last like 10 years, or probably more like 5 years, it's became more of like just like bragging about you like playing AAU like to your buddies. And it was sort of like that like when I was a kid, where I felt like people really only did it. Like girls would play for this AAU team in Shiawassee County, and it was like they would be wearing the jerseys around school or whatever, like how cool it was. I think it's more turning into that for the kids to brag about them being on the team, and for the parents to go around bragging about how much they spend on this kid's like travel ball, and to say that this kid plays. And I remember talking to my dad. This was like when I was right in the middle of playing. I was like kind of, disheveled after one tournament because AAU, I mean, it's like, it's like basically all these kids go from being the star player on their own team. And then you go to basically be like a 15 guy star player team for, your county or whatever. And so there would be like certain tournaments where, it was like I was playing for a college coach, where if I made a mistake, I was basically benched for the rest of the game, like without questions asked or something like that. And I was dealing with that, like kind of struggling with it as a little kid. And I remember my dad basically saying to me, like, man, can you imagine if all this time you spent going to these tournaments, driving to practice, basically just scrimmaging in practice, trying to get gelled as a team. Like it wasn't like we were doing drill work, basically just scrimmaging, trying to get used to each other. Imagine if all that time you did, if you just dedicated to individual skill work, like a Steph Curry or something. And I still remember him saying that to me. It made a lot of sense. My only rebuttal to that would be like, the very next, year, did I go and do that? No. Like when I was a kid, was I going to go sit in a gym and do a bunch of individual individual drill work? No. Right. So I guess my only argument would be it's better to have them in this AAU circuit than just sitting at home playing video games. But I do think it really could be improved. I mean, I've seen the coaching at these tournaments, man. You're seeing videos of coaches like strangling referees. Like that's the type of coaching these kids are getting.
Well, right. So this is why, we could do a whole podcast on it. That's a whole other topic, is the coaching in AAU. I mean, the three of us know that, your dad was a phenomenal coach, but like, a lot of the high school coaches aren't the ones coaching these AAUs. It's just some like dude, it's some dad who's reliving his glory days because he played ball back in the day. So he thinks he can coach. And so that's a whole other issue, is the coaching and like leadership that these kids are getting in AAU. There's probably some that are phenomenal coaches. So it's not everyone, but you see those videos of some dude just going off on the refs or going off on other parents. And it's like, this is not the leadership these kids should be getting. You talk about like the bragging part. I think a lot of it is social media, like they're trying to get famous on social media, to say like they played in this AAU tournament. So,
Yeah.
they want to try and get all this, hype on social media.
Here's
That's a
my
whole other
highlight
thing.
tape.
Yep. Here's my highlight tape.
Here-
It's just, yeah, it's crazy.
I remember. The last thing I'll say on this. The perfect way to do this is I remember back when Coach Mitchell ran Lanesburg. Actually,
Mhm.
Lanesburg would put together they would just take their varsity basketball team and go and play in these Grand Rapids Storm tournaments. They would go and basically play as if they were an AAU team. And if you remember, that was the team that almost beat Flint Beecher.
They had them
Monty
beat.
Morris, and they had them beat. Very good team. I remember going to this tournament, watching my brother. He played for this Lansing Triple Threat AAU team, and I remember watching this Lanesburg team beat this Lansing super team. And I remember, man, like what a great program that is. That's exactly what you should be doing. They played like a team. They were basically just playing like their normal game while all these other teams are playing AAU street ball. And I remember they were going on like a magical run through the tournament. Like that still sticks in my head. Like how cool is that this team, they did it the right way. That's what more programs should be doing.
I don't even want to.
Sorry, that's what we did. When I mentioned the Flint League, it was our varsity team. We went and played in the Flint League, and we were playing a bunch of teams that were, you got 2 dudes from Flint Central, 2 dudes from Flint Northwestern, 2 dudes from Southwestern came together for this super team. And we're just playing with our varsity team, and we're smoking all these cool. So.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I don't even want to stop this conversation. There's so many ways we could go with this. I mean, really. I mean, one point I want to make, and I got somebody tweeted to me, and they were asking about a local high school basketball program, why they've struggled so much. And I didn't really have a specific answer for them, but along the topics that we're talking about, AAU is a whole separate entity, but I think, and you guys can agree or disagree, but the successful, I think, high school programs, whether it be basketball, whether it be football, baseball, whatever, the key word is program. And okay, you got to develop a program, and you got to have a varsity coach that is so sold into the system that they're putting in so much time with the 3rd and 4th graders right at the beginning. Saturday basketball, they're showing their face at the gym. They're directing whoever's coaching the teams, whether it be the high school varsity players or whoever it is. This is what I want you to do. Then that varsity coach is watching these young kids. He can see who has the potential. He can see who maybe doesn't have the skill yet, but they could grow into it.
Yeah, right.
And they are, because we all know the kids that were junior high, middle school superstars that never panned out when they got older.
Me.
At
least in basketball.
I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody, but I'm just saying
you just stopped growing.
Yeah. I was like Draymond Green in middle school, man. Guard all 5 positions. I was the same height.
Yeah, all you Fattel boys are pretty good. That's for sure. But, the thing is, like, the point I'm making is a good, successful varsity coach has to run the youth program and put the time and effort into it. I'm not saying a lot don't, but then again, I am. I think the real successful ones, you can tell that they put the time into it and they're organized and they're successful.
Yeah.
That simple.
Yeah, I remember I had an eye-opening experience when I went to Grand Valley State, and we were talking before we recorded about Grand Rapids South Christian, the team that we lost in football in the playoffs and basketball in the playoffs to them. I mean, they were just a powerhouse. And I ended up going at Grand Valley, a few of the guys that played for those teams. So obviously, I was wearing Corona stuff. They're wearing Grand Rapids South Christian. So we're like, hey, we kind of start talking. And they laid it out. We started talking about our program. So we started talking about, whatever, all this stuff. And they laid it out for me that's how it was there. That all the way down to their like Pee Wee football, Kicks football program, they're running the same offense.
Yeah.
It's obviously dumbed down quite a bit, but they're running the same route tree, the same, like terminology, the same blocking scheme all the way down to youth. So then like each level up to middle school, you insert some more. And then high school, by varsity, you're running the whole system. So by the time you get up to varsity, you know everything.
Right.
I mean, you're ready to go. And I'm not taking any shots because, I was happy with my experience at Corona, but we definitely, at least when I was there, we were not doing that at Corona. Yeah. And to the point where every year, freshman to JV to varsity, we were learning new offenses every summer. And again, I'm not taking any shots, but it's like, man, when you think back to that, you're spending half your summer trying to relearn a new offense. And, that maybe doesn't make that much sense. And then to that point too, when I went to work at Fox 17, I ended up over in Grand Rapids interviewing Lowell's legendary coach.
Gabe
What's
Dean
his-
or Coach
Noel
Dean.
Dean. Noel
Noel
yeah,
Dean.
Noel Dean. Yeah, we ended up interviewing him, and he said the same thing. You know, we asked him, "How is your program so successful?" and blah blah blah. And he's like, "We run a system all the way down to Pee Wee football. So by the time they get to varsity, there's no teaching. You're just like inserting new plays and stuff." And it's just like, it's like, this is genius, but also like, it's not. It shouldn't be that difficult. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could actually speak to this exactly. I remember, so when Chris Curtis came into Corona, everybody started running the triple option all the way from from seniors till you were in third grade. So from the point where he came in, I think I was in like fifth grade up until I was a senior in high school, 12th grade, like we'd just been running the same offense for years. And you notice the difference because my brother's team, he was 4 years older than me. For those who don't know, we ran like the option offense, and basically it's pretty intricate where you got to make reads and stuff like that, where they were sophomores in high school still predetermining their reads. So basically, for example, instead of reading it during the play, they would call on the play like, "Hey, it's a triple option to the right. You're just going to give it, or you're going to pull it." Whereas we were reading it from the time we were in like seventh grade.
Right.
And it's just you just like think all those extra reps you get, and it just made it so it's a lot easier to run when you're in high school. But this is maybe this is our last thing on this segment. I'll throw this out there, and it's kind of a loaded question, Ted. I want your answer.
Oh boy.
And I'm 100% serious when I say this. Are kids in high school not as good at athletes as they were even 10 years ago, even 15, 20 years ago? Like, and I know that sounds like me. I'm just like the cranky old man. Other than just like from watching high school football this past year, I felt like there was a few teams that were obviously very, very good. Detroit, MLK, DeWitt, where I'm like, they could play in 1980, they could play in 2000. They're still going to be a very good team. But outside of those, I felt like just the overall average like teams are shrinking in roster size. Less kids are playing. More kids are playing video games, doing whatever. I just feel like sports in general are down. At least that's my opinion.
It's hard to argue that. I can't pinpoint it exactly, but the way you just wrapped it up, the numbers are down. There are other things out there. Obviously, you've heard me bitch about it before, the whole video games and all that stuff that takes their time away from playing sports. And there is a lot of that. And a lot of the problem is also this extra organized AAU that we started this whole conversation with. Kids just don't want to put the time and effort into it because it's a lot of stress and there's no free time. And that's why they say, okay, well, I'm just going to sit here and play Call of Duty because I don't have to stretch my mind. I can just let my mind relax a little bit. There's a lot of pressure that goes along with playing, organized sports. And I do think that we are in a cycle, and I'm not sure how to get out of it, but I think the participation, like I said, is down. I'm not going to say the skill level is necessarily different. It's hard for me to say that, but definitely the participation numbers are down, which definitely affects the product.
Yeah, I think, when people bring up the video games, I remember people saying that when I was a kid, because,
Yep.
Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and, the PlayStation were out. So, I just remember parents saying that you guys are all wanting to play video games all the time. I think it's like, it's a balance of everything we've been talking about this whole time. Kids may be getting sick of, they don't want to be playing sports all the time.
Mhm.
And so they get sick of it. And then they just say, then fine, I'm not going to play. I'm just not going to do it. So, I think back to obviously growing up in Corona in the 90s and early 2000s, a very different than a lot of other people's experiences. But I think a lot of people back then, there were, I played sport. I was playing all the time in the summer camps, or we had 7-on-7 football, the Flint League, all that stuff. But there were other people who they worked on a farm, or they did other stuff. But then when it came time for football or basketball or whatever, they were 100% committed, and they were great players because they weren't burned out. So you just wonder if there's, with the whole AAU discussion, if kids are just getting burned out on it and they're having more fun playing Fortnite and trying to get famous on TikTok than being committed to football. You wonder about that.
I think football, like, I can't explain why basketball isn't as, it just seems like there's not as many kids playing. I mean, it used to be able to easily fill out an A and B in roster in middle school with make 20 cuts and still have 15 guys in each team. You don't see that nowadays. Football, it probably has a decent amount to do with, CTE and all that stuff. Maybe parents are being too cautious or not, but I'm not going to necessarily be mad at anybody who doesn't want their son to play due to those reasons. But other than that, I don't know. I
Yeah.
think it's something that I experienced my whole life where, my brothers or whoever would say like our team sucked, like we would beat you. I feel like I'm kind of on like that side of the spectrum now, where just as soon as I graduated, I felt like, it's just like everything's better when I was a kid.
Right.
And I do think maybe that is the case, but I don't know. Just a gut feeling I have that kids just aren't as good as they used to be.
I mean, we all know that the 2002 Corona Cavaliers football team is the best football team to ever go through Corona. So,
Right.
that's just how it goes.
Yeah.